This is Vic Ballara, CEO of World Class HR Consulting and Coaching Services. Thank you for taking your time out of your busy schedule to take a look at building high-performance teams utilizing Winslow Dynamics Profile System. So, in case you haven't heard of Winslow Research, it's been around for almost 50 years. The Winslow profile itself was developed through the contribution of 12 major psychologists, including Dennis Waitley, as he was working as the chair of the sports psychology department in the 60s over the Olympics. It's the most thoroughly validated assessment. 9 million participants have been through it. The norms are updated every 2 years, which is unheard of when compared to every other tool that's out there. There are 10 different unique differentiators that I won't go into detail at the moment, but we'll be happy to walk you through. Here's just a few of them. The Winslow Dynamics Profile addresses 24 key competencies across 48 dimensions. These are the 24 competencies or traits that the Winslow Dynamics Profile assesses. And what the research has validated is that in 90% of the cases, failure is directly attributed to some aspect of human behavior. So we're using scientifically proven measures of predictable performance, also known as predictive analytics, as it can be applied to assessment, selection, promotion, succession planning, and leadership development. So the first step is creating those predictive analytics. So we take a look at the job and the key behaviors associated with success. And so it can be leadership, it can be achievement motivation. We really want to take a detailed look at the job itself. And we build a profile. Winslow refers to that as Position Compatibility Summary, or PCS. So then we look at individuals. So in this case, Chris Walls looks pretty good, right? Nines, pretty much 3 or 4 nines. Group averages 6s and 7. So overall, you would say, yeah, except for maybe endurance and composure, which are kind of low, overall looks like a pretty good person. However, when we look at Chris against a particular job, in this case, sales representative, we begin to see some problems. And so Winslow is an online system. That is, the questionnaire is online, the actual system is online, and I'll show you that in a minute. And you can, with just a radio button, look at individuals compared to specific jobs and see how they fall out. In this case, we see 3 major concerns. They're highlighted in red. That is sociability, endurance, and composure in particular. So beginning to give us some red flags, so to speak. When we look at the actual numbers, we see that there are some concerns here. 3 in particular, but also 3 cautions. And when you look at this individual's net score, and net scores can be 0 to plus 35. And the higher, the better. And in this case, Chris's net score, excuse me, went a little bit too far. So if you look at Chris's net score of 17, that would predict average performance, not necessarily noticeably above average or superior performance. The other area is the key characteristic score. In this case, Chris's key characteristic score is -5. So that would be a concern. And that key characteristic score is the total for the first 3 traits in all 4 trait groups. That is because these are the most influential and therefore identified as key characteristics. So we're beginning to see that in this case, Chris is not necessarily the best candidate. So what other candidates do we have for the job, and how do they compare? So here's the slate that made it through the first pass. And you'll see Dina looks pretty good. Godfrey looks very good given his net score and key characteristic score. And then here Gus Goffer looks okay, and then you'll see how Chris compares to the others. Now notice that all three other candidates all have some concerns. That's the red box or orange box, how it's showing up. And everybody has some level of areas where they're not going to be extraordinarily strong. But if you look at our top two candidates, Dina and William Godfrey, you'll see some interesting comparisons. You'll see that the interpersonal score for Dina is higher than William, but you'll see his organizational and dedication scores are significantly higher. And in this case, the company actually valued those trait groups higher. And you'll also see that his net score is 54, which means that that is a noticeably above average score, which would predict unusually high level of success, outstanding suitability for the position. Now, Dina's also pretty strong. Her key characteristic score is 22 versus William. So definitely these two people should be called in for the rest of the selection process, whether it's probably more in-depth interviews. And if we went back to our summary here, Gus looks to be, a pretty good third candidate to bring in for the conversations. So let's take a look at how the system looks to the client. So in this case, this is the Winslow profile system, and it's a portal unique to every client. So the client has a secure portal where they can find all of the assessments that have been conducted, the type of assessment, in this case they're all dynamics in this view, and you'll also be able to see which ones are in progress and which ones are completed. And these are all of the individuals. So you'll see that we have Chris here, but in particular, let's go back and down and we'll find, I'm going a little off topic here, or off script to try to find our individual who, William Godfrey. And so I apologize for losing him. I see Dina. I think next time I'm going to order these in alphabetical areas. So here's William Godfrey. And so here over here you see things have changed. And so this is William Godfrey's information. And so we have three different reports: the executive report, the manager's report, and the participant's report. So if we look at the executive report, here's William overall. And we can look at William and, like before, say, well, he looks actually pretty strong. But let's look at him compared to our sales position. Now, remember I mentioned the PCS position compatibility summary. So these are all unique to the company. So when I click on that, we get how William compares to the sales position, and then here are the scores that we looked at before. But interestingly enough, not only can we do that, let's say that we're actually considering William for a division manager slot, and he's an internal candidate or an external candidate, and we want to do some future forecasting. Now, I don't recommend that you use this as a selection tool and apply a future job, but it's something that is useful information. And here you'll see that, again, he's a pretty strong candidate with net scores pretty high, only one concern and 3 cautions. Actually, it looks like the same ones that were before. But what we can then do is switch to his report, which will provide details around development. So what does William need to do to be successful in this future job? So we want to get him first focused on doing the job that he was hired for, but to do some career planning after the fact and leadership development. So we're going to help him see the areas where he might be lower in and give him an opportunity and feedback to develop it. So one of the things we saw was low in nurturance. And nurturance has to do with emotional intelligence, being sensitive to the emotional needs of others. And you'll see here that there's some application to career and social situations. And then you'll see that there are actually some suggestions for development as well as a personal action plan. So every individual gets this. So it's a great career planning and leadership development program moving forward. So we've now seen how William looks like a top candidate, should be brought in to be interviewed for the sales rep position, but we also know that if in, say, 2 years the division manager is opening up that position, that he would be a good candidate with some development. So that's the uniqueness of the system. We'll go back to looking at where we left off, and the 3 candidates that we want to interview would be Dina, William, and possibly Gus. And that comes with the Winslow profile system is unlimited in the number of candidates you can assess, unlimited in the number of profile positions you can develop, and unlimited in the number of reports that you prepare. And this was the summary between those top 2 candidates. And then we can actually help with behavioral questions to zero in on the areas that might need further evaluation. So again, Vic Valera, thank you for taking the time to look at the system. Here's my contact information. I will follow up with you in the next couple of days and help you understand and value the return on investment of the Winslow dynamic system, which is significantly high. Thanks again, and I appreciate your time.